Give me 1 second, folks. We got some technical difficulties here. It's not letting me get to my page. And it's your boy Conserviz34. Thank you everyone for joining. We gonna get this intro video up. Let me just try to see here. Give me 1 second. Oh, here we go. All right. Let's cue the intro here. If we can. Ah, all right. It's your boy Conserviz34. Welcome to a Phish Noob review of Hartford 7/24/20. During that trip down to Virginia, it's about an 8 hour drive, I believe, from where I live down to Virginia Beach. I was listening to Phish radio there and back, and it just clicked. To be today, it's been rescheduled. Um, thing about Phish compared to the other jam bands that I've heard, other jam bands I've seen in person, the majority of this show, the jams kept me engaged. And again, I can't say that about other jam bands. It's hard. You only can reinvent the wheel so many times. You only can play the Mixolydian scale on an electric guitar so many different ways. And here's what I've noticed so much. I've noticed so far. I love the transitions that Phish has in songs. One of my favorite things about progressive rock is the transitions. I love how Phish is able to seamlessly transition back and forth, up and down, left and right, into various styles of music in the same song. Yes, that's what a jam band does. Yes, of course. But Phish does it to a level that I just haven't seen done and executed so well. And there's certain things that were better than others in this, and it's a lot to take in. It's overwhelming to dive into a band like this. Even though I've dived into the Grateful Dead's music, about 5, 6 years ago, I've dived into the Allman Brothers, but this is very, very overwhelming. I will say the Moment Dance, that's again one of those songs I've been playing. I was like, okay, I know. It's your boy Conserviz34. Thank you guys for joining me. If you don't know who I am a lover of live music. I try to go to tons of different concerts every year, about pretty much every genre. In the last decade, I have been more accustomed to actually more jam bands, more bands who mix up their set list that may not be technically jam bands, but they mix up their set list and I love traveling to see bands across the country. Just came off a trek to the Midwest where I went to a Summerfest show, went to Alpine, went to Deer Creek for Dave Matthews Band, and came back and went to SPAC, probably my favorite amphitheater in the country outside of the Gorge, which I went to last year. So, what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to give my analysis of this show. And before I get to my analysis, I am going to talk to a fan who went to their first show. This was my second show ever. And this is my friend's first show. And what we want to do, we just want to give you some perspective on new fans. Yes, new fans are watching and listening and going to Phish shows still all these years later, decades later. Okay. Um, a lot of their when Phish was on the rise, my uncle and has some friends from his college and high school days that were chasing Phish around. My uncle went to the Berkeley School of Music. Your boy, in the early '90s, born in 1990, so I was just a kid. So I didn't discover this band until the 2000s. And when I discovered this band, even though I was into the Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead, I couldn't understand Phish. I still did not know what was going on.
Nope.
And it took until, like I said in the intro video, till 2020, the pandemic hit, the world almost ended, and I was like, hey, I might as well listen to Phish now. And it was a time where musically I was evolving, going to all these different other jam bands like Humphreys McGee, String Cheese Incident, um, and some of the Dead spinoffs. It helped me to understand the art of a jam, that you can have great music without great lyrics, and you could have cheesy lyrics that sound good with a jam. So, shout out to the Grateful Dead and String Cheese Incident. Those are two bands that have some cheesy lyrics, but great jams. And that's where I was able to adjust and finally understand Phish after digging in those catalogs of String Cheese Incident, Humphreys McGee, and the Grateful Dead, among others. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to call my boy Matt S. He's from Rhode Island. He's in transit right now, leaving uh, Hartford. I live very close. I live in the greater Hartford area, so I'm already home. I got Domino's pizza. Okay, that was the most important thing. Got my Domino's pizza before they closed down Domino's at midnight. So salute to Domino's. I was there at like 11:55, and they held it down for me so I could still get that. And give me 1 second. I'm gonna set up this call. And my boy is somewhere in New England, so we're gonna say live from New England. Matt S. So this is Matt S. from New England, or from Rhode Island. Sorry, he's somewhere in New England right now. I don't know where. But let me just hit him up here.
Hey, Marcus, what's going on?
Hey, Matt, you're live on the air, the Phish post show stream here. We just introduced that this was your first show. Tell us about your experience here.
Yeah, first show, certainly interesting. I came in with no expectations whatsoever. Really, I've gone to a handful of Dead and Company shows, and obviously, Dave Matthews Band shows, and I had no expectations whatsoever. And I'll tell you what, the first set blew me away. I was very surprised by how everything was going. It was pretty upbeat, in my opinion, anyway. And once that intermission hit, everything you kind of gathered everything together, and it was, you thought about the first set, and you're like, oh yeah, this could be a really good, really great show. Second set, it was a little more, a lot of jams and kind of spacey to me, and obviously you get Farmhouse in there. I mean, even if you had the slightest bit of knowledge on Phish, you know what Farmhouse is. But the second set was very jam heavy, but which I enjoyed. But yeah, it was different, but it was very enjoyable at the same time. That was probably my main takeaway from the entire thing.
Okay. And you were up in the lawn. I know you were just in the Hartford lawn. We spoke about. We both went to the Dave Matthews Band show in Hartford last month. What was the sound like at this show compared to some of the other shows you've been to here in the lawn?
I thought the first thing that struck me was it was a little bit louder than I thought Dave was anyway. I thought the sound was a little more clear than Dave was, especially in June. I don't know if, for whatever reason. Um, Obviously, the the weather was a little different than Dave at Hartford, excuse me, in June. But I thought it was just a little bit better. I don't know if it was, just the set that, or the equipment that they have, or I don't know, but I thought it sounded a little more clear, a little better than Dave did. Come a month later after Dave.
Yeah, and they do have their own speakers that they set up for this show, and so that's a big difference. Is that Phish does ensure that the fans on the lawn, because the fan base is so huge into the sound, a lot of musicians, a lot of people that they judge these jams critically. They make that move to have those extra speakers, so you're not getting your standard speakers at this venue. You're getting speakers Phish has specifically for fans on the lawn to enjoy.
Yeah, no, I think that was like the one thing that I first noticed was soon. I mean, they opened up with I think it was pretty much a jam song. I don't if there were lyrics in there. I really didn't notice, but that was the first thing that struck me. It was how better the sound was compared to when I saw Dave Matthews there, or even Dead and Company last year was a little more muffled, but that was further back in the lawn um, for Dead and Company last year. But where I was, I was in over by the preferred lawn section, and I thought the sound sounded incredible. I don't know what it sounded like under the pavilion, but I know sometimes under the pavilion can get a little more muffled. Um, but outside of the lawn, I thought it was pretty much perfect, as perfect as you can get for being out on the lawn.
Yeah, and yeah, the first song, "Cars, Trucks, and Buses," that is from an album from the '90s called "Billy Breathes," and that's an instrumental track. So you're absolutely correct there. Now, tell us about. I know you've seen Deadheads, you've seen Dave Matthews Band fans. There are some fans that cross over. There are some Phish fans who hate Dave Matthews, but there's definitely a little bit of crossover. What was this crowd? What was this scene like compared to some of the other scenes you've been at for other shows?
Yeah, it's funny. The the few fans that I was with, my cousin that I went with, this was his 320th show, and he hates Dave Matthews. And even though I dragged him along last month to Hartford, but yeah, I was expecting more of a that deadhead crowd that you would expect. But when I was walking through, I saw it was more or less. I don't want to say like a Dave Matthews show, because I mean, you get a lot of mix and mingle in a Dave Matthews show, but it was a pretty good, base between um, either a Dead show or a Dave show, I should say. It was, and I mean, everyone was enjoying. Everyone was so kind. When people cut by on the lawn, they were, oh, I'm sorry, which is pretty rare to come by. But everyone was very outgoing, and everyone was having a great time. Walking through uh, Hartford there with the before the lawn and the pavilion there, it was just people dancing. It was crazy, and I can't tell you. I think that was one of the busiest places or busiest shows I've seen for a Hartford show.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely a lot of people. The traffic was definitely backed up, and this is just to give you context. This was kind of the show that if people were skipping, a lot of people went to Bethel for two shows, and then they're skipping Hartford. Some people did, and they're going to be going to Jones Beach uh, in a day from on Tuesday. So this is actually a show that some people have doing runs with Phish have skipped, but it still was a full house. That lawn was filled up. The seats were absolutely full. So it's definitely this band, because of their unique set list, there are more people that follow them around for a longer period of time. But they do less shows than they don't necessarily tour every year where they're doing 40 plus shows. They may do it, they do some splits here. Some years it's lower than others. So it's a little bit different. We're looking at even like the Dave Matthews Band, some other bands that do kind of have more rigorous. So people really focus in, they hone in. They don't know when the last tour is going to be. There were multiple uh, breaks with this band. So people really grab on to every show, and that's what you'll see is some of these people will continue on to Jones Beach. Some of them have been going to these shows since the band started out in Mansfield. So
Yeah, no, I certainly agree. Like I said, my cousin's been to, this was his 320th show,
wow,
and his first one was in 1990, somewhere.
wow,
I think it was in Providence, but yeah, he loves it, and he said even then he told me, Phish, they don't tour very often. You can go to MSG every now and again. They pop up or one of these big venues. They'll do a few shows, but to have a pretty, I mean, it's not as extensive as a Dave show, as a Dave tour, but you know, they do travel, and just to get that is, it's pretty big for a lot of Phish fans, which is what makes it unique as well. And to see everyone, from Bethel, they traveled all the way down from Bethel or wherever they may be, to come see Phish on a Sunday night in Hartford. It's pretty interesting.
yeah. And talk to us because just to give people a full background on you, so you're in your early 20s, early to mid 20s. You said your cousin was going to shows in 1990. Did you get introduced to this band from your cousin? How'd you find out about Phish?
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. He introduced me. So, he's technically my second cousin, so he's a little older than me.
Mm-hmm.
But, I was a Dave fan going through high school. Even in middle school, I had an English teacher who was, loved Dave Matthews, and he got me hooked on. He gave me a bunch of CDs. He gave me Luther College was the first Dave CD I ever heard. And I used to, go to family gatherings with the Dave T-shirts and whatnot, and he'd always tell me, "You got to go to Phish. You got to go to Phish." And finally, something that was relatively close and something that wasn't astronomically overpriced, I could finally go to Phish, and I'm forever grateful to see him. Trust me. It's just it was a lot different, and like I said, I had no expectations whatsoever coming into it. And all in all, I think I was pretty blown away by it. Just the jam heavy set that they had, and even some of the, they had more rockin' songs, and they had more slow songs. Just the way it flowed was pretty incredible to me, which I think made it even more special, personally.
Okay. And before the show, did you like kind of start listening to Phish? Did you study any live recordings? What before the show? Was there any prep that you had?
Yeah, I mean, there's always those songs. I'm from Rhode Island, and they have Weekapaug Groove. I always used to listen to Weekapaug Groove. I spend my summers down there in Westerly, Rhode Island.
Okay.
But you hear Farmhouse, but even some of the live tracks that you hear, they're very, they're vastly different. Not one is the same as the next one.
Right.
So I'll listen to them, but it's for me. I don't have a ton of time to listen to 45-minute jams. But every now and again I'll pop it on and just try to listen to it, just get somewhat familiar with it. But like I said, I'm a complete noob when it comes to it. But yeah, that's pretty much all my homework on the band itself.
Okay. All right. Well, hey Matt, we want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your reaction. And like I said, this stream is really about your experience, my experience, giving some longtime Fish fans some perspective on what newer fans thought of a Sunday show here in Hartford. So safe travels back home and take care.
Thank you, Marcus. You
All right.
too.
Peace. All right. So that was Matt S. And again, he is just to give you guys some ages as well. So he's in his early to mid 20s. I'm 31. I'll be 32 by the end of the year. So we are both, listen, when this band was starting out, we weren't even born. Matt wasn't even around when to talk about Billy Breeze. He wasn't born. He wasn't even born when Billy Breeze came out. And for me, I wasn't born where when some of their first albums came out. I was born in 1990, so they still had some albums out and some rough cuts of songs out, and I wasn't even born yet. And New England is an interesting place. Like he said, his second cousin saw them in Providence. I have seen some commentary from my uncle's friend. Again, my uncle went to Berkeley School of Music. I come from a music family. I played clarinet growing up and then guitar because clarinet wasn't getting the ladies. So I had to start playing guitar. But my uncle's friend Scott, shout out to Scott if you're watching, he talks about in the late 80s, really the jam scene in New England and just seeing Phish, even seeing bands that were coming through like Widespread Panic, Blues Travelers about that time. But I never experienced that. But even so, both Matt and I listen to, and again, some people may hate Dave Matthews Band, but I don't consider them a jam band. But Dave Matthews Band to me, Dead and Company, for me, String Cheese. There's gateway bands into Phish, and I think you have to in many ways, unless you're thrown into a show. Um, you really have to kind of digest other music that has some variety, some jamming in it before you can get to this level of Phish. So John O, shout out to John O. I saw three Phish shows. Summer Tonight was by far the weakest set list wise. We had some incredible play musically. Yeah, I looked at the set and I was following along. Shout out to Phish.net. And a lot of like some of this stuff had been played. There was some of the stuff was played at in I call it the Xfinity connection. You had some of these songs that were played in Mansfield, and just to give you guys a background, many of you guys may actually know this. So who am I telling? But Great Woods and the Meadows were two venues. Great Woods is much older. The Meadows was built in the mid 90s here in Connecticut. The Meadows became all these different names: New England Dodge Music, CT Now, and now it's the Xfinity Theater. And Great Woods became at at one point at this point Xfinity Theater. It was a Comcast theater. They both had the Comcast name, but they're both kind of venues that are 90 minutes apart, which in touring is very close. Here in Connecticut, I think, oh, I just always grew up with the Xfinity Center, or the Great Woods was always down the road. My grandparents and my uncle live in Mass, live closer there. So you had some stuff, connections from there. There was some stuff from Deer Creek right before the end of the spring tour. So you had a lot of repeats for a band that does not repeat here. And you do have, like, listen, the first three songs, to me, the show started at Free. That's just how I feel. Like, that's the show started at Free. Now, some of the jamming, I know John says this, some of the jamming was interesting, and I always enjoy analyzing that. The lighting rig was I was mesmerized by the lighting rig. This is my second show. My first show was the Madison Square Garden show, the last Madison Square Garden show in April. So I believe that was 426. And if we go to shows, some of you guys may already, you guys were there, right? Uh, but let's see, let's move this over. But my last show, I believe that was 426, 2022. If it'll jump me there. Oh, was it four? Whatever. Was it four? I don't know. Let's just look by 2022. Here we go. Oh, April 23rd. Maybe I was off. Yeah. So one of the things that really stood out to me was, so they started with Fluffhead at, I mean, this is obviously MSG. Like they start off with Fluffhead and they do Mike's Hydrogen Weekapog. Like even as a, that was my first show, I knew those songs to some extent. I had knew, so it was like, oh, I know this stuff. This is dope. Like Fluffhead is a great way to start a show. I wanted to hear Mike's Hydrogen Weekapog. I was hoping it would all come in a row because that, I know they don't always do that. Then they had Simple into Egg in a Hole, Simple. And then they, after that, Divided Sky first too. My first ever Fish set for as late as I've joined the party was phenomenal. The second set was a little bit more complex for me to digest. From No Man in No Man's Land, the Prince Caspian Piper got a Jabu. I didn't know what the heck a Jabu was. All right. Um, and the encore was stuff that I knew. Like the encore was really dope. Wilson, David Bowie Moore. That was stuff I was like, okay, I've heard this stuff, right? And oh yeah, Lonely Trip, Walls of the Cave also. So my, like when you start off at Madison Square Garden, there's only one way to fall unless you go back to Madison Square Garden, or if I would have went to Deer Creek or Alpine, right, and I do a weekend there. So I'm not shocked that there was. I was expecting. I know, in the first in the Bible, Jesus said, Misseth not a Sunday show, for thine will be blessed with jams." That's what Jesus said in the New Testament of the Bible. I think that was in Matthew 4. Misseth not a Sunday show. Amen. So I knew that. Listen, they just killed it in Bethel, right? I had a feeling it wasn't going to be like all this crazy stuff in a way that was like, wow, this is a phenomenal show. But the jams, I think the strong part of this was the jams. Um, the jams were really really great. Trey was dialed in. Maybe it's because it was his third show in a row, and I will say maybe again this is only my second show. I've talked about this before on some other content I've had. It's very common for a lot of musical acts to have the mic of the singer not be as high as the music, because you got people drinking, you got people smoking, you got people having a good time, and the music really is what, if you get that music ingrained in them, they're going to be more pumped up. So you want the music to be higher than the mic. When I was at MSG, I could hear, I was behind the stage, I was watching it from the back. This was my first full frontal Fish show. Let me stop. But like it was, I will say some of the sound as far as Trey's Trey's vocals, and then Mike sang on Yarmouth Road, right? That was a Mike song. I couldn't hear it as much as when I was in at MSG. I could hear that a little better. But they're a jam band, so it's about the music. It's not about the vocals. That's why they can get away with some cheesy lyrics, because it's about the vocal. It's about the music. So yeah, Free was really good. Yarmouth Road was interesting. Now, when I think of Yarmouth, I think of tons of white people in in the ocean, right? And was it Yarmouth? I think it's Yarmouth, Mass. I'm not thinking about reggae. Okay, yeah, it's in Cape Cod. Yeah, that's where it is. Yeah, I've been out to Cape Cod a couple times. Who hasn't? Who's been born in New England? So I'm thinking about, you know, the water and a lot of white people, and this is like a reggae like song. So that was interesting. I saw it hadn't really been played. I looked at this in this show, and it was played in 2021 a couple of times, but in 2022 it's the debut. And but I knew like Plasma, Sigma, Oasis. I will say Sigma. I understand that a lot of the this is a bathroom break song for a lot of Fish fans. I thought the jam at the end was pretty solid. I know, again, some people will say if you're a diehard fan, not for me, not for me. Sand. Now, just a story. So obviously they play this at Deer Creek, and I have the Live Fish app. Shout out to Live Fish. I gave a review of this song in one of my previous Fish New videos. You can check that out here, and I'll show you guys. This is my. Oops, that's not it. That's my home page. That's not my home page. But if you go to my playlist, I do have a Fish Noob series right here, and there are actually I didn't add episode 5, but there is a Fish Noob episode 5. And if you guys again are interested in this content, you can see kind of my journey. Oops, I thought I had it.
It's your boy.
I'll have to add it. But I go through the ticket thing. I go through Divided Sky. This video goes through me playing Divided Sky and learning some of the parts, listening to it while I'm shoveling snow, and getting through some stuff.
Boom to the 14th. That was the 15th to the. They knew exactly where.
And let me see if I can find. But yeah, so I had listened to what I did for the Fish Noob series is let's see if we can find it. Here it is, episode 4, Deer Creek. So what I did is I listened to Boogie on Reggae Woman from night 1 of Deer Creek. I did Maze, and then I did The Sand from, and I'll put the link in here in the live chat. This is the last Fish Noob episode there. But I listened to that Sand, and then I also then went to Deer Creek to see Dave Matthews Band a couple weeks after this June 8th video. So I'm listening to Sand. I've been listening to a lot of Sand in the last month. I was listening to it for this review. When I was driving to Deer Creek for Dave Matthews Band, I was listening to that 34-minute version again. So when they played it, I was pretty pumped up about that. To get Sand. Obviously, it was not the 34-minute version. I understand that is an anomaly. It's typically not that long, but that's one of the cool things about Fish is you get to see every any given performance. You don't know how long the song is going to be, and some of that's with the Grateful Dead. Even here in Hartford, there's that historic Sugaree from Hartford '77 that I have on CD, and typically Sugaree is not that long. But there's a lot even more variance to me of Fish so far, what I've listened to, of you never know how it's going to turn. They take what the Grateful Dead did and it's on steroids. You really don't know. And for instance, Farmhouse just kind of went in and then kind of went out. Character Zero kind of went in and went out. And one of the things I'm going to do with Character Zero is if you guys have I didn't even search, I just got home. But I'm going to try to find that 97 Hartford Civic Center version because that was a monumental one where it was actually a longer jam, which is actually where the Grateful Dead had that Terrapin show in '77 and had a longer Sugaree. So you have a venue, the Hartford Civic Center, now it's the XL Center, which has a Fish historic Character Zero, and you have before that in 1977 a historic Sugaree there. So that was kind of that's kind of a cool crossover. And that venue, by the way, is actually about a mile and a half from this venue, the Xfinity Theater. And the Hartford Civic Center is where I saw my first ever hockey game in 1996. And then when I was 6.5, I went to the last Whalers game. So that's a special venue to me. And I've seen many UConn games there, UConn basketball, UConn hockey. That's why I got my UConn Husky hat on there. UConn Husky. But yeah, it's interesting how, and even like Blaze On, Blaze On did have a jam, but they kind of busted through the main part pretty quick. But it's interesting how you have different lengths of songs sometimes, depending on where it is. The second set, I felt like my MSG show had a little bit more had longer jams. How many we had? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we did have 7. The show went later at MSG. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we had 7 as well. We didn't have a 5 song second set, that's when you know they're really jamming, right? But let's see the rating too of this. Compare these. So this is a 4.395 on the fishnet fish.net, and this is a 4.22 out of 5. And again, there's only they just gave the ratings. There's 654 here. There's only 82 now. Well, we'll see how what people give it. Now, the most unique part of this show is the tube in the first tube. And I really wish I would have tweeted it so I would have seemed really like a G. But I was like, I wonder if they're gonna go tube to first tube. Because when tube started, I'm like, I wonder if they're gonna go tube to first tube. And I didn't post anything. I should have tweeted it, and then I would have been like, "Yeah, I called that." uh, but it would have been cool if I did post that. But then, so the biggest moment for me in this show is actually first tube, as far as my level of excitement, because I love first tube. Let me take you back. First off, I heard it at my first show, right? Divided Sky and the first tube. Those are two songs that I had known very well before my first show, and I got them back to back. And it's amazing how, with as large of a catalog as this band has, this my first ever set. Like I said, Mike's Hydrogen Weekapog, uh, Simple I had heard, but not so much. But the Divided Sky at first too. My first set, I got a lot of stuff I really knew. And let me just take you guys around to where I was. Um, this was me a couple of nights ago. I was listening to the Phish stream. I think was this Mansfield night too. What was on the 16th or the that was in the early hours of what? Let me see. Yeah, I think that was Mansfield. Was that Mansfield? Or no, was that Bangor, Maine? Yeah, that was Bangor, Maine. I think that was Bangor, Maine because the 14th and the 15th were Mansfield and the 16th was Bangor. So this is me. Let me just show you guys. I was playing along with the stream. So it's funny how you go from sitting at home, and listen, I already heard this my first show, but I'm at home doing this. No matter what, that song gets me pumped up, and that's why I love it. I love that song. And another interesting observation: Character Zero got everybody lit. Like it went from like, yeah, we're just having a good time dancing to, oh, let's go, let's go, let's go, hey, like Character Zero really got everyone turned up. And then we had that tube in the first tube, and it was a great ending for a show that's kind of a low key show in the middle of a tour of giants, and that's really what it was. Um, they got a lot of big tour dates. They had their Deer Creek run before this, before they in the spring tour. That's going to be a pop. You know, obviously that's like the coveted run. Oh, shoot. They just had the Bethel run on the grounds of Woodstock. Interesting fact: in the last week, this past week, there were two Star Spangled Banners at Bethel. Joe Lawler, the Dave Matthews Band, did a little Star Spangled Banner. Then Trey did it in the encore yesterday. So just a cool little stat that multiple acts have paid tribute to Star Spangled Banner. What a crazy, what a throwback week for Bethel Woods. They had Alanis Morissette, they had Dave Matthews Band and Phish in the same week this past week. Here as today, the 24th of this show and the 25th. It's 1 in the morning here as I record this. We're in a new week, so pretty cool. Bethel got some throwback shows, some '90s acts, some acts that were really popular in the '90s. Atlantis, Dave Matthews Band, and Phish. So very cool. What takeaways I think you can take from me and my friend Matt, who are noobs, we're Phish noobs. We appreciate any jam. We don't really know what to expect, and we don't even really know what a good show versus a bad show is. Now, I have a little bit of a better grasp of just, hey, I can tell you MSG, the final night of MSG was more popping than this show. I can understand that, but still, I'm just digesting and taking in jams. It was a little bit easier. This show went by a little faster than the MSG show, just because I'm getting used to experiencing these jams. These jams start to go by faster as you can kind of digest them in a live setting. You can listen to this all day, all night, but when you're in a live setting, that's why you go to shows, right? If the live setting wasn't so dope, people would just go to the live Phish app and listen to this thing, or get a streaming package, and and you wouldn't have anyone at a show, right? So, what was I gonna say? I think it was Breath and Burning. Someone had a shirt on about tasting the humidity, and I think that was from Breath and Burning or the Final Hurrah. So they were like all excited, which is kind of cool because I was like, "What's tasty humidity?" And I heard the lyrics in one of those songs. Wave of Hope was awesome. Wave of Hope was dope to start off that second set, and then a song I heard the Ocean sing, same thing. Those were two good jams, and they really, the band didn't stop. The band didn't stop until Farmhouse. They were just, it was nonstop. And listen, I know that's what certain jam bands do. That's what Phish does. But it was like, there was just, it felt like all those songs before you got to Farmhouse was just one long jam. I did post this because I understand, listen, Blaze On. I understand why Phish fans don't really like that song. And I had this thing. This was my little Kanye West, right? When you hear Blaze On's coming on, you go from that smile, oh yeah, great, yeah, to oh my. But they got through. I mean, it went by quick. I would have said I would have. I'm learning that I would have swapped out Blaze On for something else. Um, what else? Oh, the Farmhouse. So I was joking on Twitter too because I have my Farm Aid shirt on right here. If you guys can see, that's the Farm Aid 2021. This was in Hartford last year. So I went. So obviously I don't buy shirts of shows I didn't go to. So I uh I said that because I wore my Farm Aid shirt, they played Farmhouse, which I know is that performance at Farm Aid is one of those legendary performances of it as far as mainstream attention to the song. And I love Farm Aid. I support Farm Aid. Some of you guys may know where Farm Aid is, but very shortly, I would say this coming week, they're going to announce it. I actually know where Farm Aid is going to be. I won't say it on here, but I do know where Farm Aid is going to be. That's all I'll say. I got some. How I found out is very interesting. That's all I'll say. I wasn't supposed to find out, but I found out. Some of you guys again may know, but shout out to Farm Aid. Support your local farmers and support the message in Farm Aid, which is the buy local, save the local farm, save dairy farming for sure. That's one of the things I've learned. I've been to two Farm Aids, and I am a regular donor to them, and I read a lot of their content online when I can. So yeah, kind of cool. I have my Farm Aid shirt on, and I was trying to push. I said Trey saw me from the uppers. I was in the 500 Triple D. This is my home. Xfinity Theater is my home venue. I've never lived more than an hour from this venue, even when I went to college in Willimantic at Eastern Connecticut. I've never lived more than an hour away from this venue, and most times I've lived like 15 minutes from this venue. All the places I moved around, um, So this is this is my home venue. I love it. Um, one of the biggest lawns. I just went to Alpine. It's funny. The other thing about the show, once you go to Alpine, there is no such thing as a steep hill unless you go back to Alpine. Going to Alpine Valley last month or this month, beginning of this month. Um, that like the Hartford lawn holds 22,000. They don't sell 22K anymore. I think they may sell close to 18, 19. They used to sell 22K like back in the olden days. But that lawn's big, but the Alpine lawn is bigger, and there's like one other lawn that's bigger than both of those combined. I think it's in California somewhere. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see this band. I may order, like I did the other day, I may order another stream to watch it, watch the Alpine show, just because that's a big weekend, right? It's a big weekend. There's no Gorge this year, so your Deer Creek and Alpine weekends are those big 3 night stands. And then you have what AC. They'll be in Atlantic City as well. But to me, Alpine is such a historical venue. So is Deer Creek. The Atlantic City shows where they're in the middle of a field or something. I don't know. So I really hold Alpine, especially going to Alpine. I hold it in high regard. Visiting for the first time this year. Wish I could go back for Phish, but I'm getting married, so I can. I don't got no extra money to fly back. I did my trip. Maybe I'll come back. Maybe I'll see Phish in the future tour. Maybe I will. Who knows? So there you have it. That's just wanted to give you guys perspective. And if you like what you see, if you want to hear, if you're a veteran or a new fan, or you want to get into Phish, check out my Phish Noob series. I do have a playlist. I'll put the playlist in the description here as well. And it's just I really wanted to document this journey that I'm on, exploring this band, and really show you guys how I'm developing in these first shows and these first years of what I consider myself as a Phish noob. Right? There's so much you have to learn, so much you have to listen to. There's so much access you have once you sign up for that live Phish app, as I did, or I don't know, sign up, subscribe to it. It's like its own Netflix, and it's really cool. Tony C. Oh, good to see you. Thank you, John, for your comment. And shout out to everyone. I know some people may be watching this replay. You may have not been up when I'm recording this. It's 1:22 in the morning on an early Monday morning. Tony C is going to August 3rd at Pine Knob. Great for you. Tony C is a mid-Atlantic feller from the tri-state area who lives out in Michigan. So he was at the Santana show where Santana had to leave. So he's out there. He loves going across the Midwest, Blossom, Columbus, Ohio, and of course his now home venue, Pine Knob, there. And like I said, there'll be more to come. If you like, again, I know some of you guys don't like Dave Matthews Band, right? Right. But if you do, I do a post-show stream after every Dave Matthews Band show. That is where my knowledge is very high. Shout out to, by the way, I did do a collaboration with the Osiris Pod. I did a Live Tracks 10 collaboration with them, and I know they have. I'm gonna be watching their. Let's see, the HF Pod, I think is what it's called. I'm interested. Yep. Oh yeah. So it's gonna be a Hartford recap at 1 p.m. Okay. So yeah, that should be interesting here. And I know a lot of people do subscribe to that, but they had me on just to give you guys. They had me on for their Dave Matthews Band series. They had me on just because of my expertise and my knowledge of the band there. And I'll be looking forward to seeing that HF Pod on tour. Hartford recap should be a great thing. But yeah, that's pretty much it. YouTube Conserviz34, Instagram, Twitter. I just hit 1,000 followers on Twitter, and I also have an Instagram as well. Instagram Conserviz34. I did share
some sights and sounds from the show tonight, and the Instagram is growing. Some of my content from tonight. And yeah, so Instagram, YouTube. Can't say again, just to reiterate, the lighting rig was amazing from the front. The show was amazing. The jams, I enjoyed the jams, and we'll see what happens next year. I'll try to put in for some shows in the East Coast. Next year, I don't really plan to travel a lot for live music, but I'll try to get to some of these northeastern, mid Atlantic shows. Best thing about living out here, I mean, I could drive to Jones Beach if I wanted to. It's a 2.5 hour drive. I could drive. I'm 90 minutes from Mansfield. I just wanted to take a break. I've been going across the country all June and July, so I just wanted to take a break. But I could have went to those Mansfield shows. And I'll leave you with we'll close out with this funny video. Some of you guys may have seen this, but I did have going to Mansfield so much, I know about the parking situation. So I will leave you guys with this. Let's see. Well, all right, we'll close out with this. But thank you guys, YouTube Conserviz34. Definitely like, comment, subscribe. I'm out of here. Peace.
It's your boy Conserviz34, and we have breaking news out of Mansfield, Massachusetts at the Xfinity Center, where a driver that parked in the general admission lots has finally got out of the traffic maze that is the Xfinity Center. That's right, he did not pay for premier parking, he did not pay for VIP parking, or he didn't even look to take that right into the easy out parking that's right off the highway. So he was stuck here all night long, no Lionel Richie, and he finally got out of the lots, and we're being told he is now doing a U-turn so that he can re-enter the lots for night 2. Yeah, that's a whole lot of gas and a lot of time, but that's what happens. Now, we spoke with this gentleman because that's how slow it was going. He was able to park his car and talk to us. And what we were told is that he actually decided to leave right before the encore started because he was a little bit frustrated. It was the second show in the row that they decided to play Sing. He's like, hey, they just played that at Deer Creek. What is this? What are they, Dave Matthews Band? Why are they repeating songs? And then he also found that, this was the second summer tour in a row that they started a show for that tour, and they just played Weekapod with no mics there. And he was just like, this is too repetitive, it's too predictable. So he stormed out right before the encore began, and he missed the punch you in the eye, because by the time he got to the gate and exited, and he couldn't re-enter. They told him no. He heard those notes. They said, no, you can't re-enter. You just walk out, right? So he walks to the general admission parking, and still, even getting that head start amongst the other Wooks, he still was stuck in parking all night. And you know what? This is just a teachable moment, right? This gentleman was not from New England. I mean, he was using his blinker in the parking lot to make a left turn in between those cement Jersey barriers. So he's using his blinker. He's not from New England. But he was chasing this band around. He had went to Deer Creek, and he said, hey, I want to go to Mansfield too. I'll do a couple other shows here after Mansfield as well. And it's one of those things. We probably won't get another Punch You in the Eye, right? That's probably the only one of the year. And it's rarely played in the encore, but the poor dude, he was stuck without being there in the venue, which I guess it doesn't count to your stats. If you're not in the physical premise of the venue, it doesn't count towards your stats. You have to erase it off. honor system, right? And then he goes to his car and is stuck in the maze that you will never get out of in a reasonable time. So there you have it. That is all the news we have right now from the show weekend here from Mansfield. Tonight's show will be at 7:30, and we'll see if there's a little bit more variety tonight than the repeat from last night in the predictable summer tour opener where you have a week of pod with no mics. Well, it's your boy ConcertViz34. I want to thank you guys for watching, and tune in as I will be doing a live stream after the Hartford show as part of my Phish Noob series. Thank you for watching, and best of luck to getting a poster out there when you're in line, when they actually give the first 5 people 15 posters apiece, and by the time you're at person number 30, you don't get a poster because that's how it goes. But still, good luck, you never know. Thank you for watching, and peace.